Hi, welcome to another edition of Resounded Glory. I'm Kaylie Hooker, here with Mr. Green, Lloyd Hawthorne, and Miss Bittner, and we're going to talk about the spring break vacation to Europe. So Mrs. Bittner, can you tell us how traveling with so many students was?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was sort of stressful, especially working the subway and getting on and off the metro for the first time. But we formed groups and we had a really, really good time. We had a lot of new experiences together, and we came back with all of the students that we left with. So we're going to count that as a success.
Mr. Green, can you give us a rundown of what the normal day looked like?
Sure. It was a little bit different depending on the country. Rome was a little bit more organized, so we would wake up, have breakfast every day, and then we would go do pretty much jam-packed sightseeing. Paris was a little bit different. We still saw all the major things, but the kids had a lot more free time to kind of explore different parts of Paris as they wanted to.
Can you tell us what your favorite site overall was?
I would have to say all the sites that we visited in Italy and France were really awesome, but the one that really just made me that was so spellbinding was the St. Peter's Basilica. It was just once you walk through the door, it's just this huge ceiling of all these paintings and sculptures and statues. It was just amazing. It was awesome. So.
I would say that my favorite site overall was probably the Eiffel Tower. While I had been to the Eiffel Tower several times before, I'd never actually climbed all the way to the top. And so I did that on this trip. And while it was mildly terrifying, it was a really great experience.
Yeah, I would say mine was probably Notre Dame, just because it's this gorgeous cathedral and it has so much history. It's been around for almost 1,000 years, and several of our students had a really unique kind of great reaction. Many of them walked through the doors and were just in tears because it's so beautiful and it has so much history for Catholics.
Can you tell us what your favorite meal was?
My favorite meal was in France, and Mr. Green actually was the one who influenced me to try it. But foie gras, it's a duck liver, literally tastes like bologna with some jam and salt. It was very good. So it was amazing.
I would have to say that my favorite meal was it wasn't a planned meal. We had some free time in Italy, and Miss Umpleby, Mr. Green, and myself sat down at this little cafe where the people spoke no English at all, and we ordered bruschetta, and it was amazing.
Yeah, mine would probably be in France as well. We had boeuf bourguignon on one of our last nights together. It's basically just pot roast with a lot of red wine, but, it's French, so it's better than pot roast. And this was really enjoyable for me because I lived in France in the region where this is a specialty, and they did, a pretty good job.
And then Lloyd, what made you want to go on this trip?
Well, before the trip, a couple years ago, after 5th grade, I went to Paris, Rome, and London. And being 10, 11 years old, I didn't really understand too much of what we were touring. So I thought coming on this trip was the perfect opportunity since I'm in high school, and I've matured over the years to actually learn more than what I did before. So it definitely paid off, for sure. Never mind.
And then Mr. Green, what was your favorite trip memory?
So the best and funniest memory definitely happened on our last night in Paris. We had just seen Notre Dame, and we were coming back to a square in the Latin Quarter, and there was this big dance party going on. There was a street performer who was getting these groups to dance, and so myself and all the kids and all the chaperones, we kind of busted a move right there on a street corner in Paris. It was slightly embarrassing. You saw Parisians walking down the street and taking a 5-second video, closing their phone and laughing. So we might have made fools of ourselves, but it was really fun. And, it was great because it wasn't on the itinerary. It wasn't one of the things that we had planned. Yet I think that most people who went on the trip would agree that it was kind of the most special and unique thing that happened.
And lastly, Miss Bittner, do you have any plans for next spring break?
We do. Next spring break, we're going to be taking a domestic trip. We're actually going to be taking students to Oahu, Hawaii. And we are going to be doing an excursion of Pearl Harbor. We're going to be exploring some of the religious and political history of the islands, and I think that it's going to be a really, really good time. So if anyone is interested in going on that trip with us next spring break, please stop by to see either myself, Mr. Green, or Mr. DeNovo for more information. We hope that you'll join us next spring.
Thank you, and this has been another edition of Resounded Glory.